In today's video, I want to talk about transitioning from contest prep into the off season, also known as the improvement season. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Paul Revelia coming to you live from Tampa, Florida with ProPhysique.com, and I have another video to do. Today's video topic is brought to you by a client of mine named Rich Lee. So thank you, Rich, for the great question. The question that Rich asked was, and I'll read it as he wrote it, transitioning from prep to off-season, more so the first 4 to 6 weeks post-show. Hit on mindset, perhaps. Now, this is a great question for me to address for Rich for a few reasons. First of all, Rich is less than a week out from his final competition of the year, and we have been dieting for more than half of the year. So Rich has been in contest prep mode for a long time. Rich is doing the OCB Midwest States, which I did back in 2009. This is a fantastic show run by none other than Ray Binkowski. So if you're in Illinois or the surrounding areas, be sure to get to DeKalb this Saturday and check out the OCB Midwest States. I highly recommend it if you're a competitor or even if you just like watching the show. Fantastic location to attend a show and fantastic lighting. It's just a really well-run show. Ray does a great job. Hoping I can make it back up there one day for that show again. With Rich's season coming to an end, it's time to shift. And that can be difficult when you've been in diet mode for a long period of time. When you're in contest prep, you change your lifestyle so much so that you actually change your mental approach and your look upon food, events, everything. And that's for a good reason. You have a very, very specific goal, and to reach that goal, you need to change things. What is the best way to approach going from a long diet phase, getting down to stage lean, and then how do you look forward to, as Rich says, the first 4 to 6 weeks post-contest? Well, there's a couple different answers here. So for everyone, it's going to be a different answer, and this is where coaching specificity comes into play. So for Rich, who is going to do very well at this show and likely take more than a full year off from competing to come in better for his next show, as most natural bodybuilders should do, it's going to be a bit more of an aggressive approach to getting his off-season calories increased post-contest. One thing I like to do with people is don't tell them to change their approach. So for contest prep, what we typically do is prepare our meals in bulk, right? We'll typically go into the kitchen 1 to 2 days a week, prepare a bunch of foods, put them in Tupperwares, put them in the fridge, prepare the meals for the week so you don't have to do a lot of thinking. And it makes contest prep much more manageable when you have your food prepared several days in advance and you can just grab it and go. I do not like to immediately stop this process, because it's going to lead to more issues if you do. Eating out, while certainly not an issue, becomes habitual, just like eating out of Tupperware becomes habitual. So what I typically suggest for the first month, 2 months following a contest is continue your meal prep patterns. Continue that process. Stay with that, especially if this is your lifestyle. The big difference is here. So let's say Rich eats 5 meals a day, 7 days a week, and that's 35 meals for the week. Well, instead of preparing 35 meals, he should prepare 31 meals, 32 meals, and plan to eat out a few times a week. The difference there is he can have a little bit more food, be a little bit more social, get the feeling of getting back into that normal life, especially with the holidays right around the corner. It's going to be very important. The one thing I don't want to happen is to completely stop tracking, completely stop looking at what you're eating. It's not important that you're to the gram with your macros immediately post-contest. For someone like Rich, I'm going to talk about some other cases here shortly, but for someone like Rich that's not going to be competing in a month, in 6 months, or possibly even more than a year, a couple years from now, the most important goal is that we control body fat regain in that immediate period post-contest so that we don't blow out our body fat without getting the advantage of some metabolic building in the process. So while some body fat is certainly healthy to gain, and I'll give you that number, I want to make sure we're controlling a little bit for it, and we're not just, putting on the dreaded 15, 20 pounds of body fat that can happen in a week, a weekend, or even just a couple days of overeating. So let's talk about what should your goal be post-contest. So for someone like Rich, I'm going to suggest we stay about 5% above stage weight within the first couple weeks. I want to control calories. I want to get his hormones back in play. But a lot of that's not going to happen right away. A lot of that's not going to happen unless we get body fat up quickly. And if we get body fat up too quickly, we're not going to get the advantage of that metabolic building period. So a lot of comes into play with this is response and learning and speaking to your client, how they're feeling, how they're doing. Another big mistake is the show's over, so I'll just stop doing cardio. Now I know it can be tough to do cardio after you've been doing it for months on end and the show's over, but even keeping some cardio in, tapering down, allows you to really maintain a leaner physique. And I could use a lot of examples for this, but what I'm actually going to use is myself. You see, all my contest preps before the one I just did last year, I would go immediately into off-season mode where I just didn't do cardio. I would continue to train, but I would eat out. A lot of that had to do with the fact that I always competed at the end of the year, and so that would immediately precede the holidays. And it's very tough to stay on track at the holidays. I worked in an office environment. There were always foods available. There was parties during the Christmas holidays. Everyone's always bringing things over. You're going to events. You're sharing things. You don't want to say no. Plus, you don't need to say no. Your shows are over. But what we want to do is taper cardio slowly. If you're doing 5 or 6 days a week of cardio, maybe you keep it to 4 days a week and you reduce the length of the sessions, you reduce some of the intensity. You keep your sessions right after you work out, so you don't have to worry about going back to the gym if you're doing multiple sessions. Another thing this will help with is your strength will return rather quickly. You'll start putting on some lean mass. As we know, cardio has an interference effect on strength and performance with resistance training. So as you're tapering down cardio, your strength adaptations will actually increase, and that will also help offset less cardio. So that would explain it for Rich. We're gonna set a goal to put on a little bit of body fat post-contest and hopefully keep our eating patterns and our behaviors very similar, but at the same time we want to start incorporating some non-traditional foods, some things that he wants to eat, some social events. And depending on the personality of the person, if you want to stay on tracking your macros with an app, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine as well, as long as you have a strategy in place where you can kind of build from and understand where you're at through consistency of diet. Because after 6 months of tracking your macros every day, you can look at a plate of food and be very good at that process, be very good at understanding what you've eaten for the day. And that way we can constantly add calories, taper cardio, get you to a nice, healthy off-season place, all right? That's one thing I've been able to do this year for myself. Last year, when I got down to my show weight and I came out, I started my contest diet at about 235 to 240 pounds, depending on what day of the week it was. And I have not gone above 218, and it's been much easier. I'm doing very minimal cardio, if any, and I'm eating very freely with a higher calorie intake. And it's actually strange for me personally, because usually when I eat like this and I train like this, I'm in the 240 range. And right now I'm under 220. So it's been a very cool transition for me to learn myself how to handle that improvement season process. Now let's talk about somebody else. Not everybody's going to take a year off. And that's where the reverse diet or the post-contest period can be a bit tricky. For a competitor who is on the cusp of doing great things and they don't want to take a full year off, they have another show in 6 months or in 4 months or in 3 months or whatever the time frame may be, or maybe it's a photo shoot. That's where we want to be a little bit more meticulous with the reverse process. This is where we actually want to avoid any type of overeating. Initially, we can go out and have a meal after the show, even enjoy our Sunday after the show, but then we want to get back on to a set number of macros, and we want to keep tracking that. And we want to do the best we can to spend the maximum amount of time building and improving prior to the next show. And the best way to do that is to avoid having to get into a deficit earlier. Now, as an example, I've had a client who did a show in the middle of summer and then wanted to do a national show. What do we do from there? Well, if he gets up 25, 30 pounds, we're gonna have to really work to get him in stage shape again for the fall shows in November. But instead what we do is we spend that time reversing, managing macros, managing body fat a little bit closer, not letting him jump up 5 or 10% body fat initially, and really building that metabolism so that we don't need to spend a large amount of time in a deficit prior to the end of the season show. If we can prep for 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, somewhere in that range, it's really gonna mean that we don't have to spend a lot of time in that hard caloric deficit and losing all the benefits of performance and feeling good. So that's where a properly controlled, tightly managed reverse can really be beneficial. Now again, these are two different types of approaches, two different athletes, but what's important that you as an athlete, or you talk to your coach and let him understand what your goals are. And if they don't align with what you believe, then you need to have a conversation with that coach and say, listen, here's what I believe we should do, and hopefully they see things your way. And if not, maybe they have a reason for doing things the way they do them. The most important thing here is that you have a plan. I can attest to the fact personally, my first show I ever did, I had no plan. I didn't ever plan to compete again. And so what happened when the show was over was basically every time I saw a food that I hadn't eaten in the last 6 months, I ate all of it, and then got more the next day. And so it quickly became about, oh, let's see what foods I can fit into my diet that I haven't had in a long time. And it was less and less about my next goal. And I put body fat on rather quickly, and I felt great, granted, but it's again disheartening when you work for 6 months to get on stage and you look fantastic for that all to be gone within a period of a week. And then you start to question what you're gonna do. And that's where you get a case of the post-show blues, which I'm sure any of you who've competed are familiar with. You know, you take away that goal, you get there, and then immediately you have that feeling of you're a little bit lost. You know, I had this a lot growing up with sports. When a season would end, I've heard Olympic athletes have this because they prepare for 4 years for an event, and then once the event's over, they get a little bit of depression. The same thing happens to competitors. I think most all of us go through it, and it's why some of us get addicted to the stage. But if you're setting a post-show goal, like, hey, I want to stay within this amount of weight, I want to get my calories up to here, I want to keep my body fat at this level, and I want to get better for the next time around, I want to focus on performance. If you're setting those goals before the show ever comes, I can tell you, you're going to have much more success because it changes the mindset that you go through. It changes your mindset each time you reach for something. One thing I was able to do last year when I got done competing was when I went out for a meal with my family or friends, and I would typically get something that's higher fat, higher calorie, I found myself instead enjoying the time with the friends and family, but I would get the lower calorie option. I would get the grilled chicken salad. I would get things like that instead of going for the full-on cheeseburger, fries, whatever I was in the mood for. And that really helped me manage the weight. And I was amazed at how I was able to keep the weight lower using that process while also still going home and cooking my other 30 meals for the week and keeping them prepared and at the house and ready to go. Hopefully this helps you out, guys, because I know contest season is coming to an end. I am going to be at NPC Nationals in Miami this Friday with me and Lauren Conlin. I have 2 competitors competing who are fantastic, Danny Light and Samantha Muller, and they are going to be on stage Friday and Saturday, so I will be busy working with them. But if you're in the area, please let me know. I would love to get together, chat, hang out, talk. We're going to be staying right downtown in Miami, probably training at either David Barton or LA Fitness, probably eating at Whole Foods. The whole downtown Miami area where the show is just fantastic, and there's not a lot of things better than the weather in Florida in November. Anyway, guys, that's it. This is Paul from ProPhysique.com. Thank you for watching. Please comment, question below. I love new subscribers, I love likes, and I love hearing back from you guys and giving me ideas for going forward for more videos. I think I'm gonna try to do 4 videos this week. I leave on Friday very early in the morning, so I won't be able to do a video Friday, but I should be able to do one Monday through Thursday. Again, I appreciate you guys for all the support. Have an awesome week, and hopefully anyone that's competing this weekend, crush it. Thanks, guys.